It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer's expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel.
They once called him a music mogul, a kingmaker, the ultimate success story in hip-hop. But yesterday, as Cassie Ventura took the stand in court, that polished image shattered before our eyes. Diddy's face went pale as his ex-girlfriend described events so disturbing that even veteran courtroom reporters were left in shock. The man who once ruled an empire couldn't hide his emotions as Cassie laid bare everything, and we mean everything, about what allegedly happened behind closed doors.
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer's expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
For decades, Sean Diddy Combs moved through the music world like he owned it, because in many ways he did. He built bad boy records from the ground up, turned unknown artists into global icons, and expanded his empire beyond music into fashion, vodka, and media. On paper, Diddy was the blueprint for success, the man who turned hip-hop into big business. But that flawless image, the business genius, the mentor, the visionary, was allegedly masking something far more disturbing if what's coming out in court now is true. While magazines praised his empire, while fans screamed for him on stage, while the world admired his sharp suits and charm, Cassie Ventura was reportedly living a very different reality. The contrast stunned everyone in the courtroom. Here was a man who had always appeared perfectly polished. Designer suits, flawless grooming, carefully chosen words in interviews. But the allegations? They painted a completely different picture, one that fans would barely recognize. Court reporters noted how Diddy entered on day 2 looking every bit the billionaire mogul, flanked by expensive lawyers, confident, even smiling. He seemed like a man on his way to close a business deal, not someone facing serious accusations from an ex-girlfriend. That confidence didn't last. Within the first half hour of Cassie's testimony, everything changed. Witnesses said the swagger vanished. The calm, composed businessman began to crack as Cassie described detailed moments from their relationship. Diddy's legal team scrambled with constant objections, seemingly trying to stop her from continuing. Imagine this. The same man who once commanded boardrooms, built empires, and launched careers, now visibly shaken, unable to control his reactions in court. He reportedly shifted uncomfortably in his seat, eyes fixed on the floor. The power had clearly shifted. All eyes were on Diddy as Cassie took the stand. His face reportedly drained of all color. He fidgeted with his tie, then his cufflinks, then just his hands. At one point, he began scribbling frantic notes and passing them to his attorneys, so quickly, in fact, that one lawyer had to raise a hand to slow him down. A court reporter described it as watching someone realize, for the first time, that they were no longer in control of the narrative. One observer said Diddy looked physically sick as Cassie calmly laid out the story of their relationship. Another said he closed his eyes several times like he couldn't bear to see or hear what was unfolding. And this was only the beginning. As Cassie's testimony continued into the afternoon, the courtroom was about to hear the allegations that would send shockwaves through the entire music industry and possibly destroy the legacy Diddy had spent his entire life building. The man who always told the story was now facing a version he couldn't spin, edit, or erase.
Said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse, in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yet, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there.
When Cassie Ventura took the stand, you could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. Everyone knew this moment was coming, but no one, not even Diddy's own legal team, was fully prepared for what she was about to reveal. After years of silence, of holding these stories inside, Cassie finally had the chance to speak, and she didn't hold back. She started small, and that made it even more powerful. Cassie began by sharing how she met Diddy at just 19 years old. He was already a giant in the music world, a multimillionaire with industry connections everywhere. She was a young model with dreams of becoming a singer. From the very beginning, the power imbalance was massive, and, according to Cassie, Diddy knew exactly how to exploit it. Her testimony unfolded slowly, like a suspense film where you sense something terrible coming but can't look away. First came the alleged control over her personal life, how he supposedly demanded to know where she was at all times, how he would randomly show up if she was out with friends. Then she described the alleged control over her career, how he threatened to shelve her music if she didn't follow his demands, how he allegedly sabotaged her chances to work with other artists when he felt jealous or threatened. One of the most chilling moments came when Cassie testified that Diddy had installed tracking software on her phone. According to her, he would sometimes call her just minutes after she arrived somewhere, already knowing her exact location. She claimed he slowly cut her off from anyone who might convince her to leave him, isolating her until, in her words, he was all I had left. The judge had to call for order 3 separate times during this part of the testimony. Diddy was visibly losing control, shaking his head, whispering loudly to his attorneys, reacting in ways the jury could clearly see. Each time, the judge warned him, and each time he managed to stay composed for just a few minutes before breaking again. It was like watching someone who'd always been in charge suddenly realize they no longer had power over the situation. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Cassie pulled out her phone and passed it to her attorney. Texts and emails were projected onto a screen for the entire courtroom. Diddy's expression said it all, complete shock. He had no idea she had kept this digital trail, Messages allegedly showing him apologizing for violent behavior. Messages where he appeared to threaten her career if she ever spoke out. Communications that directly contradicted the image his PR team had worked for years to protect. But those messages? They were just the beginning. Cassie then described multiple instances of physical abuse throughout their relationship. The room went silent as she spoke. She recalled being thrown against walls during fights. She shared an incident where, she claims, he pushed her down a flight of stairs in a Miami rental, the most horrifying part. She testified about being choked, not once, but on multiple occasions, until she nearly passed out. She said he would only stop when her body went limp. Jurors were visibly shaken. One older woman was seen quietly wiping tears from her eyes. A male juror avoided looking at Diddy after some of the most graphic moments. Even veteran reporters admitted they weren't ready for the depth and detail of Cassie's account. And all of this, every painful moment, was just the buildup to what she described next. The hotel incident that would blow this entire case wide open.
With Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
Thought I was going to die that night, Cassie said, her voice barely louder than a whisper. The entire courtroom leaned in, hanging on her every word. She was describing an incident at the Four Seasons Hotel, a story that had never surfaced before. Not in the press, not on gossip blogs, not even in rumors. This hotel incident had remained hidden for years. Cassie explained she kept it secret out of fear. Fear for her safety, fear for her career, and fear that no one would believe her over someone as powerful and influential as Diddy. But now, sitting on that witness stand, she was done staying silent. According to her testimony, what began as a typical industry after-party quickly turned into a nightmare. Cassie said Diddy flew into a rage after seeing her speak with another music executive. She described the moment his smile vanished. She recalled how he grabbed her arm with such force it left bruises, and how he whispered threats into her ear, all while maintaining his calm, public demeanor in front of everyone else. The most shocking part? Cassie testified that Diddy dragged her through the hotel lobby, pulling her toward the elevators as she cried and struggled to break free. She said she caused enough of a scene that hotel security approached them. But the guard, recognizing Diddy, simply asked, "Is everything okay?" When Diddy said yes, the guard backed off. He didn't even ask me if I was okay, Cassie told the court. Then came the photos. Cassie's lawyer introduced a set of images she had taken the morning after the incident. Bruises on her arms, a split lip, redness around her neck. These weren't professionally staged. They were grainy, taken in a bathroom mirror, and somehow that made them even more gut-wrenching. Cassie said she took them because she was afraid no one would believe her without proof. Diddy's legal team immediately sprang into action. They objected, arguing the photos weren't properly authenticated, that they could be from any incident, that they hadn't been submitted during discovery. But the judge overruled every objection. The photos went up on the courtroom screen. Jury's reaction was immediate and visceral. One female juror covered her mouth in shock. Two male jurors turned their heads away, unable to look. A juror in the back row began scribbling in her notebook, her hand visibly trembling. This hotel incident was the trial's nuclear moment, a bombshell no one saw coming. There had been no reference to it in any previous filings or public statements. Diddy's legal team was caught completely off guard, and the panic on their faces was clear to everyone in the room. Cassie continued, testifying that Diddy threw a champagne bottle at her. It missed by inches and smashed into a wall. She said he went on a violent rampage, destroying the hotel room, breaking lamps, flipping over furniture, even punching a hole in the bathroom door. But what she said next was the most terrifying part. Cassie testified that Diddy wouldn't let her leave for over 48 hours. He took her phone, she claimed, and warned her that if she tried to call for help, there would be consequences. As this part of her testimony came to a close, every eye in the courtroom turned to Diddy. His response to this moment, his expression, his body language, would go on to define not just the trial, but possibly the rest of his legacy.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she said she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on it.
It was the moment no one in that courtroom will ever forget. Diddy, the man who built an empire on staying cool. Under pressure, completely unraveled right in front of everyone. The mask he'd worn for decades didn't just slip, it shattered. And what lay beneath it? That wasn't the polished mogul the world thought it knew. You have to understand, this is someone who's built his brand on control. The smooth-talking dealmaker. The unshakable icon. The man who never breaks character. But as Cassie's testimony cut deeper piece by piece, the control slipped away. Court reporters who've covered hundreds of celebrity cases said they'd never seen anything like it. Diddy visibly crumbled. What began as subtle reactions, shaking his head, muttering under his breath, turned into full-body frustration. He shrank in his seat. He looked cornered, unprepared, almost afraid. One eyewitness behind his legal team described seeing his lead attorney place a firm hand on his arm multiple times, whispering to him, trying to hold him together. At one point, a note was passed to him. It said, "Stay calm." All caps. It didn't work. Cassie described an incident at Diddy's Hamptons property, and he slammed his palm against the table so hard it echoed across the courtroom. Gasps followed. The judge paused the proceedings. "Mr. Combs," he warned, "if you cannot control yourself, I will have you removed." And for a second, it looked like that might actually happen. As Cassie continued, Diddy mouthed denials every time a major accusation dropped. "That's not true," he kept repeating. But the jury saw it all on every expression, every flinch. A man used to shaping the narrative now forced to sit and watch it crumble, and then came the breaking point. Cassie testified that Diddy had allegedly threatened her family, not just her, but the people closest to her, if she ever spoke out. And then, like a final nail in the coffin, she revealed she had recordings, real audio, his voice, making those threats. Her lawyer played the first one. That's when Diddy snapped. He shot up from his chair and shouted across the courtroom, "You know that's not how it happened." It took 3 of his lawyers to physically restrain him. He kept trying to talk over the recording. His voice clashed with his own voice coming through the speakers. Chaos erupted. The judge ordered an immediate recess, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen it. The jury, the reporters, court staff. The man once believed to be untouchable had just shown the entire world how touchable he really was. And just when people thought the bombshells had stopped, Cassie dropped the biggest one yet. She'd been collecting evidence. For years. Text messages, emails, photos, all stored in places where Diddy couldn't reach them, couldn't delete them, couldn't erase her story. The courtroom fell silent as Cassie revealed she had messages from other celebrities, people in Diddy's inner circle. Names everyone in the room knew. According to court transcripts, these weren't just distant acquaintances. These were longtime friends, business partners, people who had witnessed Diddy's behavior firsthand. When Cassie mentioned this, one observer said Diddy looked physically ill. His legal team immediately objected, shouting about hearsay, about discovery violations. They demanded a sidebar. The judge reviewed the evidence in private and came back with one decision: overruled. Talk or treat. Messages were admissible, and one by one they hit the courtroom screen like grenades. A famous rapper had texted Cassie after a Grammy party, "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can stay at my place if you need to." A pop star wrote, "I've known him for 15 years and I've never seen him act like that. This isn't normal. Please call me." And then, perhaps the most devastating, a message from a veteran producer who had worked with Diddy for decades. "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." These weren't rumors anymore. They were receipts, evidence, messages that dismantled Diddy's long-standing claim that no one had ever witnessed anything inappropriate. Now the court saw that not only had people seen it, they had tried to help her, and then came Diddy's own messages. Screenshots revealed text after text that seemed to acknowledge wrongdoing. "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again. Whatever you need to make this right, new car, new apartment, just name it. My lawyer can have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow. $2 million clean break." but you can't talk about the past 5 years. As these messages were read aloud, something telling happened in the gallery. Members of Diddy's entourage, people who had shown up that morning in solidarity, started quietly slipping out, one by one. No words, no eye contact, just gone. By the end of that session, Diddy sat nearly alone at his table. His army of support had evaporated. Day 2 of the trial ended not with closing arguments or dramatic speeches, but with the unmistakable feeling that something huge had shifted. The man who once walked into every room like he owned it left looking smaller, quieter, and undeniably shaken. The empire he spent a lifetime building may not survive this. Because Cassie Ventura didn't just share her story, she backed it with evidence. With audio, with names, with facts. She didn't just challenge Diddy's image, she may have rewritten his legacy. And now the only question left is no longer, can Diddy win this case? It's, can his reputation survive what the world just heard in that courtroom?